Welcome to Colorful Journeys of Success. Claire Mullen, producer, host, and author of Color Wheeling for Success, explores with her guests the stages of success in their lives. This show highlights leaders, teachers, coaches, mentors, and even parents who are role models who help change our world. How have you succeeded, and who was your teacher and inspiration? Now, who are the people you teach and inspire? Listen to and watch our fascinating guests as they share colorful stories of success and how they help inspire. Now, here's Claire, the color wheeling lady and our host.
Welcome to Colorful Journey of Success. I'm so glad that you joined us because we've got a fantastic show. We have two guests that are so talented. I mean, you can't, it's absolutely amazing how talented they are. We have the authors and art illustrators and artists, and we have Lynn Rogers, and she's also an instructor, and she has one of her students. Lynn, thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire, for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, this is exciting because Colorful Journey of Success is all about how successful people help other people succeed. And we have you are the perfect guest, because here we have the student, we have the teacher and the student, and you have your success story and you have your success story. And so we want to hear about it, though. I'll stop talking.
All right.
Okay.
I'm Lynn Rogers, and
Okay.
I am a local author. I have 12 books in print.
Mm-hmm.
I've written a local history book on one of our towns,
Okay,
Alviso.
let me have that. Well, we'll look at this in a little bit, but let's hear just about you, your success story in a little bit, and then we want to hear from Chris.
Well, great. Well, I'm an author of 12 books, and I really take joy in helping other people realize life extension through creativity. A lot of my students have published in their 80s, and I have students of all ages. I've written and I paint, and I find that it's really life-giving for me, and it's helped me through many obstacles in my life to be in the arts.
And you also have a
daughter,
autistic daughter, so that's quite a challenge, and we'd like to hear more about that in a little bit. But let's now go to Chris. Chris, share with us who you are, a little bit about who you are and your success and what brings you.
Well, I'm here because I'm a student of Lynn's in two of her classes, creative writing and creative memoirs, and that helped bring me back from an injury I sustained. I was down and isolated for a long time, and the class helped draw me out and into new adventures in life. And my life was pretty confined, and been involved in writing, poetry, prose, started doing some watercolors and acrylic art.
Really?
And she's even got me out and singing in public, which I'd never done before, embarrassing myself.
Well, congratulations. I think that's fabulous. I think that's absolutely fabulous. So, all right, I'd love to hear you sing, but not right now, a little bit. Well, as I mentioned, Colorful Journey of Success. We all have our own colorful journey of success. And we'd like to hear from you, Lynn, a little bit about your journey. How has it been?
I was born in Berkeley. My parents were there after the war, and I ended up writing a book called Born in Berkeley, coincidentally. I grew up in Menlo Park. My dad ran the U.S. Geological Survey there. But I found myself breaking away from some of the conservatism and the materialism, and I was much more interested in following the paths of some of the beat artists. And I had the pleasure of meeting Neil Cassidy, who was Jack Kerouac's prototype when I was very young.
Really?
I even found myself hitchhiking on the road to Mexico and hiding out with author Ken Kesey, and so I had quite a counterculture road. I've stayed with the creativity. I don't think I've taken an aspirin since then. I'm not in the drug side, but I'm really in the creativity side. And I soaked up the influence of these great beat writers just before the hippies were coined, and found myself out on the road having those experiences. later on, when I married, I was taking the next step that a lot of young people took from that period into the spiritual quest. And I wrote about The Rainbow's Daughter, about this spiritual quest of the 70s that took place in our Bay Area. There was a charismatic woman, and late Marcia Hunter, not the late. And she had a group of young people who became caught up in what was both a Camelot and a little bit of a cult. So I lived through that, left it, and wrote about it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I really think
I love all the colors and everything. I think that is wonderful. Absolutely fantastic. So I imagine your journey, that really was a journey, wasn't it?
It was a journey.
Yes, that really was. And what a contrast in life, going from what you described, you were born in Berkeley, and then getting married, going to spiritual, and that, as a married woman with a family. Very, very fantastic contrast.
And then I had a special needs child, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And that really changed my life and helped me grow up, I think, and find out what life was really about.
How many children do you have?
I have two daughters from an early marriage during the height of this 70s quest.
So, well, I think that you could probably teach us many, many lessons, not necessarily just how to write. Many lessons of life.
Hopefully that's possible. I had a wonderful mentor whom I met in this period. And her name was Jessica Madigan. She had been associated with Edgar Casey's work. I met her at Asilomar. She never had children of her own, but when she was young, she was adopted, grew up in the Deep South. Her foster father took her to a circus, and a woman there read her hand and said, "My dear, you will never have children, physical children, but you will have children closer than those of the flesh." And I felt that she became a wonderful mentor to me and gave me a purpose for writing. And she always said, write those things that have not been written and comfort others through your writing. So that's been a precept for me.
That's quite a, having someone actually kind of guide you through life, give you a direction like that.
She did.
And she really did, didn't she?
She did. Stayed with me to
And
this
you've
day.
stayed on that path.
I have. Through many obstacles, I've stayed on the
You
path.
certainly have paid. And so the highs and the lows, and I like the suggestion of the title of this show that you gave us as creativity is life-giving.
I think that's the case because if creativity can sort of give you a hold on heaven or hell. I mean, there's some music we know that if we listen to it, it's very discordant and even disturbing, its message. And there's other music and writing which, even though it examines life honestly and doesn't shy away from the shadow side, it still has a message, I think, that lifts us up.
Right.
And the very process of being creative, I find, is life-giving. I'm excited now to be around singers who are in their 90s, working full-time and singing and leading dance movements. I think that one of the things we learn right now is that the fastest growing population in the United States are centenarians. As a teacher of adults of all ages, particularly older adults, we become aware of that. And to see people in their 80s begin to publish for the first time their accounts of life in World War II and actually go out on the speaking tour, to me is very exciting. It's life-giving.
And what's wonderful about that is that they have so much wisdom and experience of life, right? At 80 years old?
Well, I've taught all ages, from high school through people who are centenarians, and people who are younger are newly in school. They're cramming facts, they're great at it, but the depth isn't there.
Right.
And if you go into a class of mature learners who are potential artists, potential writers, I should be paying them to be there because I learn. I learn every day.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. Well, you know, that's quite a journey. Share with us, Chris, your journey.
Well,
I'm
unprepared
sure
as I
this
am,
very-
I started as a young man in Southern California, youngest of 3 boys, to a World War II veteran, and Southern California, probably like Northern California had its row houses that they developed so much. Southern California And my father was worked in the aerospace and worked it up through all the evolution to the local businesses here and things that are out in space right now being reported on Mars. I learned a lot of technical aspects from him growing up working on cars, how to take things apart, fix them, and had quite a career in the aerospace going on until I was injured. And
What was that injury?
I injured my back, and I was isolated for too long. I think I went crazy a couple of times during that time, and recently, in this last year, I got involved was able to get out due to an improvement in my health, enough that allowed me to attend some classes, and was inspired by the elder people that were in the classes, telling their stories, people that I had worked with, and they were telling their stories, their experiences in World War II, and the trials and tribulations that they went through. And was very pleased to come along with that, and that's allowed me to move forward, try and not focus on the pain that was preoccupying me, and take up a brush and a pen, and I can only say thank you to Lynn, who is a mentor and who's inspired me, and I've met so many people who have wonderful stories to tell. One's about the civil rights movements, people growing up in different parts of the country, and they have such depth, as she described, to bring to this. And it's just wonderful.
Now you are a poet, right?
After attending the class, I wrote a story which we condensed down into a poem and entered it into the Los Gatos Poet Laureates. It has an anthology for 2012. Submitted that after it was
What is the name of
edited.
your poet? Poetry. Poem.
Los Gatos Quail. And it's about quail in the yard and the experiences with that. And you should look for it when it comes out. They're supposed to be having a publishing soon. It's not out yet, and there's supposed to be a get-together on that, Parthenia Hicks of the Los Gatos Library.
We'll look forward.
I'll have to brag on him a little bit. He's outdone the teachers, the other students. He walked in with his first poem, and we all helped shape it, but it was his material, and he was selected over a lot of the instructors. And then his first painting, I also helped facilitate an art group, and his first painting was sold at a book fair, and now he's out singing. so he's really he's a latent star.
Wow, you are really blossoming, aren't
really
you?
Bloomed.
Yeah, it went from being a technical writing type person to one using the other part of my brain to express the emotional and feeling side, which was...
That's so exciting, though.
It's not part of the technical world, though.
You have reinvented yourself, right?
Definitely. It's brought out a whole side to me
that you didn't even know existed.
Not since I was a child.
That is so exciting.
Yes, it was wonderful.
Good. Well, congratulations.
Thank
really,
you.
Congratulations.
And I thank Lynn and all the others who have inspired me with their stories and helped me realize there's so much more to life that I was missing out on. It is.
What a rich life. Well, let's talk a little bit about what we have on display here. I wanted to hold this book for just a moment so you could talk about your journey and your journey of success. But one last question before we move on to the books. What motivated you to teach others?
Another mentor. And my mentors, frankly, have generally been women. The late Louise Vernon was an adult education instructor, and when I went back at a college level to immerse myself in creative writing courses, I found that parallel to that, there was this wonderful person in the adult ed community who was every bit as exciting. She would take people in her home. She had a little teapot, and we'd put in $1 or so, and she would mentor people through PhD projects, and she had successful romance writers, historians. It was very exciting, and I really enjoyed the experience with her. And I think that my first book was dedicated to her. I think it's really important to honor the mentors. Really important to honor them.
I believe you.
To keep their names alive. So another person who didn't have physical children, but through all of the creative work that she's mentored, she'll have probably a more powerful impact on future generations, even than those who have. And I always tell students that these are your great-grandchildren, these books, you know.
Right. So what would you say to people listening to this show as far as what he's done? He's reinvented himself in a sense. You are a mentor, and how would you mentor people listening to this show?
Well, if you're listening and you ever thought of writing, this is what I would say, that write 5 minutes a day and realize that you have an internal critic and a playful storyteller. And just let the storyteller flow. Write rapidly, put it in an envelope, maybe use your 5 senses. If you start criticizing yourself, that's the key. You realize that you need that editor later, but if you take him or her in too soon, you squelch yourself. So let the playful creative spirit take over. Start that way.
Well, the night that we met, there was a woman that actually talked about being an editor and how many editors that people need to actually publish a book. I was amazed that there were so many editors that an author needs.
Well, you do need editors later, but if you self-edit too soon, you stop yourself. And so it's just letting the flow happen. The late Louise Vernon said, your book already exists. You're just a conduit. And don't expect it to come in order. Let it come in pieces. Let it come as through the wholeness of both sides of your brain. Later on, it's wonderful to have a team, and I found that people can barter and exchange services with other friends and people who have skills that they don't have to make an editing team later.
That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect, because I would imagine it would be expensive to keep paying people to come in and edit your books, and you'd lose part of that camaraderie.
You do, and so what I do is that when students want to edit, and if they come and help me, then I announce to all the classes, we've got this editor, and so they get paid projects and start avocations as editors. So that's kind of worked out.
Interesting. And illustrators also?
And we have had some illustrators as well.
Okay, well, let's talk about this book, Images of America, Alviso San Jose. You want to talk about this book? I'll just kind of hold this book for the camera.
I wrote that with photographer Robert Burrell, who also wrote the Milpitas book and did the famous grade Z monster movie that reached Johnny Carson called The Milpitas Monster years ago. Bob had an idea to collect photographs of several important areas in the South Bay. Milpitas, he felt, was crucial to the agriculture. Alviso was a great shipping port that rivaled San Francisco.
Just hold it up, hold it still.
Jack London
This way.
and Charmian London often hung out in Alviso. So when I came aboard the project, Arcadia, he's a wonderful, wonderful photographer, but somewhat dyslexic, and they needed an author, and I was already helping him because I was giving service. And so I got hired. My daughter, Megan Flott, helped me edit. She writes by the pen name of Meg Rogers and went on to write 2 other Arcadia books, my non-disabled daughter, of whom I'm very proud. We all sat up as a group, and we'd sit up nights writing novels that had to be condensed to 80-word captions and 148-word captions. Bob and I feel that this is better than both of us, because my novel writing and his wonderful technical grasp of the railroad and the technical aspects
Are
of the
there a
story
lot of pictures
together.
in it, in the book?
There are, it's a formula. Arcadia asks you, it's a national publisher, to do about 248 shots. You must collect old photographs, and then you write about them. And Bob envisioned a book that was going to be about men and boys, boats, trains, and planes. And as a woman who'd lived through a lot of crucial times in history, I said, we need women and people of color. So I brought that side to it, and we think it's really an interesting book.
Fantastic. Well, I'm really anxious to read that one. And let me have this one. And you have some other books. You've written all of these books, is that correct? Now, what is this one about?
Well, this is the beginning of a series that I wrote in which a young woman takes to the road, as I did as a teenager at the end of the 60s. And it's really this that period told through a young woman's view, which we don't often hear. So
Born in Berkeley?
Born in Berkeley. And I was very fortunate to run into a man who had been Joan Baez's, he'd been a printer for Joan Baez's high school, Pacific High School, where I attended briefly along with Bob Weir of the Grateful Dead and so forth. And Will Radcliffe founded Inkling Press, and he works for Sunset, and he said, let's put this book together. So we made a series that's evolved out of Born in Berkeley through Inkling Press in Menlo Park. And I'm proud of it. It's a little bit risque because the times were risque.
They were.
I think as I went on to write, I wrote 49 Shades of Grey before it was popular in some of the stories. But I'm interested in spirituality, sexuality, creativity, the whole of our experience. You have writers that write in one side or the other, but I think we're complex beings.
Well, I notice you have not only those books there, but you also have these books over here. And you've written all these books too?
No, my students have published those books. In fact, if you could hand me the second one, the one underneath.
Second one. This one?
Yes, please.
Okay, A Scalpel and the Sword.
This is by Dr. Dick O'Neill, and it's sort of typical of some of my students who lived through World War II. He wrote The Scalpel and the Sword, which is, it's a fictionalized version of his life as a young medical student and doctor in combat and in hospitals in San Francisco. And it's just wonderful. He's moving toward his 90th birthday in his late 80s, and his book has taken off. So it's really an exciting thing to be part of.
Fantastic. And I love the illustration because it catches, of course, everyone knows what that is, right?
They do.
They do.
I also helped, thinking of the Golden Gate Bridge, there was a period in one of my classes in which I was approached to help do scripts for the World War II service project in Washington, D.C. And so having swung from being a war protester during Vietnam to now helping veterans, I ended up helping write 7 or 8 scripts so that veteran stories could be produced. And my most recent joy is that my African-American student, Clarence Hammonds, has come up with his book about being in a, quote, colored battalion in India, being forced to, after the war was over, his crew, except for him, had to defuse bombs and all were killed. NBC Radio picked it up.
Wow.
So we've really had a lot of fun and also dealt with tragedies and social injustices and been able to write about them.
So you've opened a lot of doors for a lot of people, haven't you?
I've been a catalyst, I think.
Yeah, I think so. But, you know, let's talk a little bit to Chris, though, because, you know what, we're going to run, we could talk for hours, couldn't we? I definitely wanted to hear something about your poem, though, Chris. Can you give us a couple of lines?
The themes are really the important thing, the relationships and all that you were talking about.
My home is in the mountains, and every year there's quail that come through, and it's quite an experience to see 2 couples of quails come along, and then as time goes by there's little bitty movements in the grass, and start to realize that the hawks were flying around for reasons. They're looking for food, and the quail make different noises as they are protecting their young ones. And so I started leaving the grass tall and protective areas for these little critters to hide in. And I tried to capture that and the emotions that went along with going through a divorce. And I was fairly immobilized during that time frame. So I was a captive audience to this. And I tried to put it in words. And it
Can you
gave
give
me an
us
outlet.
a couple of lines?
Right now I kind of draw a blank, other than there's one relating about my little dog Pomeranian laying in the grass while a buck comes nearby and just ignores him, and the dog's just staring at him rather than barking at him versus other dogs around. But it's about the nature of the area, you know, the oak trees and that.
Right.
But
You must have been motivated at that when you started seeing that, so.
it was a good, yes, it was wonderful things. Little snapshots into the natural beauty we have around us that in busy lives we tend to ignore and forget and not get a chance to see.
And that's a message. Boy, that is really a message. And we're going to start winding down. So I'd like to mention just very briefly, though, if the camera could pick up some of the artwork, it's amazing, some of the artwork.
I'm also an artist, and in the classes that we have now through both Los Gatos Recreation on Tuesday, Creative Memoirs, and CASE, Campbell Adult Education, at the Camden Community Center on Thursday. We have people doing paintings and creating books, and some are just coming to get the creative flow going. But I'm a painter. I've been in local galleries, and I really wear two hats. The larger work, the first work, Berkeley Chick, is actually one of the illustrations in the novel Born in Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
And the middle one is my impression of Alviso. I love Alviso. I think it's just a funky, wonderful, creative place.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my impression of Alviso. And this gentleman features in some of the later books about my character's sort of misguided but heartfelt quest to find a twin soul at midlife. And so he's one of the characters in the book.
So how long does it take you to actually paint one of those?
I'm known as one of the fastest painters in the area, so I'm usually painting maybe painting 3 or 4 things. Sometimes, usually in one session, usually. So I really work quickly.
That's amazing.
Sometimes a little longer.
Well, we have about 2 minutes to go. And I always ask my guests to give us a wow, a word of wisdom. Give us maybe a short phrase, no more than 3 words, to give to the audience that they can take home with for the rest of their life. So what would be a wow or a word of wisdom from you, Lynn?
Creativity is life-giving.
Creativity is life-giving.
That's it.
That's a fantastic motto. And it's so you. It is so you.
I think so, Claire.
And Chris, how about you?
Well, with what she said, her inspiration
You get 1 minute
gave
real
me
quick.
a way. I couldn't get over a wall that was blocking me, and she helped me find a way around it, an alternative path.
So 3 words. Word of wisdom.
Art is inspiring.
Fantastic. That is fantastic. Art really is inspiring. And creativity is life-giving. So thank you so much for joining Colorful Journey of Success. It's been wonderful to have you with us today. And aren't they talented? They are so talented. And words of wisdom, I think they're words of wisdom. Now, if you have an idea, if you'd like to be interviewed, I'd like to know you. I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to hear your story. I'd like to hear your expertise. I'd like to really speak to you. So please contact me. My name is Claire Mullen. I'm producer and host of Colorful Journey of Success. And 6 Colors at SBC Global. That's my email, Claire Mullen. And I really hope to hear from you. And thank you so much for joining Colorful Journey of Success. And the motto, what is the motto? What is it? Creativity is life-giving. So go out and live life with your creativity. Bye for now. Thanks for joining.